Good evening, everybody. I'm your host, Mark Coleman, this evening. This is our author, Kenny Down.
Good evening.
And you have joined us for the Darko Book Club launch event. This has been a while in the making. Kenny, are you ready for this evening?
I'm ready. I've been planning this, and it's very, very exciting. I think it's an important book. I think it's really a great thing that so many people join, and I'm looking forward to this. This is my heart's desire to have written this book, so I'm looking forward to it.
It's an amazing book. We have lots to share with you tonight. We want to start by showing you the book trailer for Darko. This was produced by the publisher, as we'll give you a little bit of insight. We'll talk a little bit more about the book as we go through this hour this evening, and we'll also have a chance to actually listen to Kenny read from the book. So let's go ahead and start with the book trailer. Kenny. Movie trailers, you have to wait. You actually have to wait before you can go see what's in that movie. Here, the book is available. Darko is available right now on Amazon.com and also BarnesandNoble.com. Just go ahead and put Kenny Down in the search engine and you will come up. You can download it electronically or you can have the paperback. And it is an incredibly good read. I've had a chance this week, Kenny, to read some of this, and I can't wait to get into talking more about it.
Great.
But first, we have a blessing tonight. Okay, from a world-class flautist. Her name is Rana Yellowrobe. We'd like to go to her right now.
Greetings, Sacred Hearters. My name is Rana Yellowrobe, and I'm from the Cree Nation of the Chippewa Cree tribe of Rocky Boy, Montana. My family, my grandmother's side, mother's side is full-blooded Cree, First Nation Cree from Saskatchewan, Canada. And my father is Assiniboine Sioux from Fort Belknap, Montana. And I come to you in a good way of sharing my experience with Darko, Johanny Darko. And I want to say thank you to my friend Kenny G. Down, who is the author of this book, for inviting me, especially at this time, to be reading this book. It's perfect timing. I want to compare this book to a book that I read many years ago, a book called A New Pair of Glasses. And the book was so powerful to me that it gave, that I remember when I was talking to a friend about it, I said, and you know what else he said to me? And, and this is how powerful. I would usually read this book late into the night. And I would feel myself in the presence of her talks, Johanny Darko's talks, looking up and being in awe of the things that she was saying. For some of you, you are experiencing in the world what Indigenous have been experiencing for generations. And so this book is a great guide into, being able to be present, what is happening, and to be responsible, for what is happening in our world. And, and to be given a choice as to being part of the problem or part of the solution. And so I wanted to give this book a blessing, Darko a blessing, because this book needs to be read right now. It needs to be read by everyone, probably not right now, but for years to come. In our way, we have what is called a smudge, and it's a blessing. And whenever I smell sage being burned, my whole body just goes into prayer. And I call forth the spirit of the Creator to come before us. And I compare this to when you stick a tea bag in hot water and the medicine is released, the same thing happens when we take and we put fire to the sage. And the burning, the smoke takes our prayers, it cleanses us, right? Before we go into prayer, takes away any kind of negativity that either within us or that maybe we might have bumped into along the way. And we smudge with a pure and coming into a pure heart. All over, and then to send a blessing to Darko, that this book be taken far and wide for many to share. I know I'm sharing it with my friends, that her words be heard, that in this place where, for those of us with the open heart to hear her, and also for those who may have a closed heart, that the spirit of this love will penetrate that heart and open up. And we thank you, Great Spirit, for this, for Kenny and his inspirations to be able to write this, and that you guide this book into each and every hand at this time, in this world where we need it. We thank you so much for the beauty and the power of these words, and for the goosebumps that these words give us, Thank you for the tears that this book gives us, because in those tears we're opening up, and we thank you so much, Creator. I wanted to play a song that when I was talking to Kenny, I said, when you were writing this, did you feel like you look down and all of a sudden you don't know how it got there? Did you feel the spirit of you? I said, because I felt it when I was reading the book. I could just tell where he was just flowing, right? Because my eyes were just flowing and rolling with the book when I was in that place where I was being inspired, and I could hear her powerful words. And I compared it to a song that I wrote called Voice of the Trees, and sending this to you all in the spirit of this book and what it means, the spirit of love, that purity that Johanni Darko had in her heart, that spirit penetrate each and every one of us. So through the inspiration of Johanni Darko, through Kenny Downs, that through the song Voice of the Trees, Creator through me, I play for you, Voice of the Trees. I hear the voice of the trees calling out to me.
I play their songs with my flute, calling out to you.
Thank you to all you Sacred Hearters. We send you this blessing. Be free and be true. Aho me kakuyasu.
Working very quickly today, but yeah, I get goosebumps.
Yeah.
It's incredible. If you haven't picked up this book yet, and I really urge you, please read this book. I got through the first 100 pages and I wanted to call Kenny on the phone, but it was like 3 a.m. and he wouldn't appreciate that. I just had so many questions, and I know you do too. So what we'd like to do is have you put your questions up on Facebook Live. We're going to choose a few of those questions for Kenny to answer this evening. And he's got a small token of his appreciation to share with you if we pick your question. Kenny.
Yeah, so if you put your question in the chat on the Facebook Live event, we're going to send you the Sacred Hearted hat, which is some of what Rana was just talking about. And I'll also send you a copy of my first book, Awaken Giant Sleeping Spirit. So we've got some things to give away. Just put your name in the chat. We'll follow through with you at the Darko Book Club and get your address and get these things shipped right out to you. So get your questions in. If your question is picked, we've got some things to send you. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Kenny. And it was interesting. I was driving on my way over here. We're listening to the radio, and a Guns N' Roses song came on.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's so funny because we got Duff in the show this evening, right?
That's here. Yeah, I'm going to do a little book interview with them right now. Yeah.
Yes, we want to take a look at this. Duff McKagan, a friend of Kenny's from way back. You'll learn a little bit more about that in this video. But he had a chance to sit down with Duff and explain exactly how this book evolved and how he got here. And it's a fascinating conversation. Let's go ahead and show you that.
Hey guys, I'm Duff McKagan. I'm very pleased to be here with Ken Downs,
Thank you very much, Duff.
author of this amazing book, Darko. Ken and I have known each other since probably 1980.
Yeah. Yeah, since teenagers probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Punk rock days.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll probably let you tell your story a little bit more. I was honored to be able to read this book that you wrote a couple months ago, I guess now, maybe 6 weeks ago, and I was blown away, absolutely blown away. And I want to talk to you a little bit about this book and the writing process. And
But we're in luck. It's the kind of stuff I like to talk about. Duff. So
yeah.
This is good. I'm proud of the book. I think it's an important book.
Darko is the story of a we know her from birth, basically, a little baby.
Yeah.
We know her through the eyes of her protector, who's only a few years older than her.
Yes.
So it opens up in
I King.
From, hey, King.
Yeah.
Right. So she has a protector. We're going to let you guys read this book and get into it, but it's written from the viewpoint of her protector, whose name is King. He got the name I King because he'd be called on the street, hey, King, and it became I King.
Yeah.
Was his name. brilliantly crafted from the viewpoint of this almost bodyguard, which he became later on to her.
He did.
And she is from. I keep saying this when I tell people about the book. She's the chosen one. She's one of the chosen ones that walk among us.
Yeah.
And,
Destined to be an ascended master, this girl.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you go into that. The book opens up from the beginning, basically. She's a very little girl. King is looking after her. It's New Orleans.
It is.
Not the best part of town.
Desire.
Yeah. So what's going on?
Well, this is really the Joan of Arc story. It's the story of a modern day saint, a modern day Messiah, and it's like the Joan of Arc story. Johanni Darko, the protagonist in this story, is a modern day Joan of Arc figure, and the idea really came to me that we need somebody like this in today's world.
Can you tell me a little
Yeah.
bit? Tell them what you told me about Joan of Arc. The story. She was 19. What she had done up to that point, and why she was killed.
Yeah, well, Joan of Arc was, somebody that I've been fascinated with for years. But Joan of Arc was a 14th, 15th century French girl. But, like Johanni Darko, she was illiterate. She was from poverty. She was incredibly young. And she started hearing what she called the voices came to her. And these were St. Margaret, St. Catherine. And they told her that, hey, you're the one that's going to lead us out of this 100 years war that we're in. And, she was so dynamic and so compelled that she became, still to this day, the youngest leader ever of a supreme leader of a major military force. It's still that day.
And she really was. She brought the
really was.
crown back to France.
Crown back to France. Crowned the King of France. Got the independence from England after they've been at war for 100 years. She was just a brilliant young woman. And Johanni Darko,
young. Okay.
And so
What happened to her?
she won two major battles, major wars and battles, and was in battle herself. And went through all of this. And she was finally captured, and she was taken to trial, and they burned her at the stake. But finally, the thing that they could really pin on her was that she wore men's clothing. And that was why they finally got her for wearing men's clothing. And if you did it twice, once they warned you, if you did it again, then it was a capital punishment. And so she was burned at stake for that. And when she died, after all that history, she was 19 years old. And that's
mind blowing.
It's mind blowing. And so that's the story of Johanni Darko, that, why is it that with the social justice issues, the environmental justice issues, and sexism and racism and homophobia and xenophobia and nationalism and all of these problems that we have today, it's going to take somebody like a Joan of Arc. And why wouldn't it be a young girl from New Orleans who's illiterate, who's uneducated, who reluctantly goes along with these voices, because that's the way it was for Joan of Arc. And Johanni Darko is the same. Reluctantly, she goes along with, who am I to do this? And it's the same kind of thing that we all have. We all have this piece, like, who am I to do this great thing? Like, who am I to write this book, or to do the writing that you've done in your books, which is fantastic, by the way.
Well, thanks.
And so that's it. That was the seed that set this whole thing in motion.
It's a fantastic, germination. Like when you told me the story about Joan of Arc, and I think I was just starting this book. I texted Kenny and called him a few times while I was reading this book, because I was just as a fan of his writing, and I read a lot of books. That's been my hobby for 26 years. So I was texting you and calling you, like, as a fan of your writing and a fan of the idea the audaciousness of the simplicity of the story. And you know, before she starts pushing back on the why is it me? You know, I was kind of enraptured by her as a child because she was too innocent to question it yet. You know, you're part of the beginning of the book. She was too innocent to question it. She would just take refuge from all the things in her house and the
abuse,
moving around, the abuse. She would go into that synagogue that only had, you know, maybe 4 members left in that crappy neighborhood, or the Catholic Church. But the woman rabbi, recognized it in her and let her just stay there.
Yeah.
Like, let her just hang. And the Catholic priest let her. Everybody that was in touch with the spiritual side were like, I don't care if she's Jewish or Catholic, she's it, you know. And I loved that. Wasn't quite a black child. She wasn't quite an Indian child. Well, wait, she had some European. Maybe she had some. Oh, she was Asian in there, and she. And at the end of all of that, you're like, oh wait, she has a bit of all of us in her.
That's right.
She is all of us.
You got it.
Yeah.
If you got that's it. You know, you try to, you know, if people connect with the characters in the book and that kind of depth, that they can see themselves, not just in her character, but in every character. And there's some characters in there that are not likable.
Right.
You know, these people that are persecuting her, and as she grows in her stature and her following, people are afraid. You know, when somebody like Martin Luther King or Gandhi or the Thich Nhat Hanh in Vietnam, when these people, you know, come up, it's scary for people. You know that you know, they say like the Christ brought the good news, right? But it wasn't good news for everybody. If you were in power, you know, and you had a lot of stuff, man, this was bad news.
Right.
And that's the way it was for her too. But even those unlikable characters, these people who are so prejudiced and trying to hang on with everything they've got, you know, the idea is to try to see yourself in those characters, even those characters.
Sure.
Like try to see and you know, it's sickness on both sides, you know, that these are sick people. You know, what can we do to kind of bridge this gap?
Yeah, I was even polling for like that John, the white John, Mike. So was his name Mike?
Yeah, Simon the White.
Simon the White. Simon the White.
Yeah.
I was polling for him at the beginning, like, oh, he would see, because he saw it in her.
Yeah.
She was a little.
She touched
She
him.
was like 3 years old, and he was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, wait, and I was hoping he would do something brave at that moment, you know.
Yeah.
So you pull for these ancillary characters throughout the book, like, come on, dude, get it and wake up and move on.
Yeah.
It's the story of a girl who is, like you said, like Joan of Arc, hears the voice, has a special something. People around her recognize it. Then the churches and whatever, special people around the neighborhood and start to see it in her and recognize it, like the rabbi woman, immediately, like something's going on. And she, brilliant a way to get this out into the population in your book is through the tattoo parlors.
Yeah, the tattoo parlors, the Harley Davidson dealerships. I mean, these people start pulling for her. You know, they start like, hey, what can we do to help this girl? Because there's something incredibly special about her and what she's doing.
Yeah, you wanted a Darko tattoo.
The veterans and the people that had the Darko tattoos. And yeah, that was, you know, they were all people that could see that something has to change. You know, and that's really, you know, this book is very timely for what we've got going on today. That you know, if it's not clear to people, you know, maybe this book will help it become clearer, but the help's not coming from the top. You know, and that's the point I make in the book is that you can change the king, but if the kingdom doesn't change, then there's a real problem. You know, it's like we the people that have to change. you can change the king out as many times as you want, but as long as the mentality, if we don't rise in consciousness up to a new level, then you've just got the same kingdom and the same people fighting and the same people pointing fingers, and you never get to where we really want to be, which is this coming together time, and that's what Darko, is about. It's bringing about the coming together time.
There's things like you sometimes you know what to think, right? But there's another you don't read it, or you don't know how to write it especially well, but you know what you think,
Mm-hmm.
and when you said it starts from the bottom up, and the way I don't know if it's in the preface of the book or the beginning of the book somewhere where you talk about that. You're not preachy.
Yeah.
You're just talking, and you're talking plain English and plain things that we all think about it. In this day and age where it's, we hear about the divide and all this crap. I know that 99% of us kind of really think in the same, but whatever. It's called centrist way. We all want this, what's good for a fellow man, what's good for us, we all kind of want those things, And you can write about that in a book, and you illustrate the story of this girl, and it's a familiar story. We know the stories, without giving too much away. It's the rise, the questioning, the rise. And, but there was so many times, I got to say, Ken, that, knowing you for so long, knowing what you've gone through, what we both, at times both went through at the same time. And I read your first book, which was more of I thought it was really good, really brilliant too. And just like, this is like a kind of how-to life for people like me,
That's right.
Luckily, I've through martial arts, I got sober and got a real center and a spiritual center through that, and I can identify with things like this, and there are people that are more touched. I've seen it. There are people that are more in touch, and therefore probably more touched because they're more open to things, and I think that is true with yourself. You and I haven't talked a ton in the last 20 years, 25 years, but I've read you. So I've gotten to know you probably better than us, than us going out and getting a cup of coffee. We probably talk about some books and cool, but you couldn't ever articulate
if you didn't read the book
over coffee. No. So I really, as a guy who reads everything from Cormac McCarthy to World War II history and Roman history and great nonfiction, great fiction. That's all I do. I try to read the best books, and your book stands up to all of these. I was a little afraid to read your book at first, and I did that with. What if it wasn't good? What am I going to tell you? What am I going to say as your buddy since 1980? I'm not going to come up with an excuse because that's not the way I roll. Okay, how do I be straight up when I start reading it? I'm like so happy and so relieved. And then I'm becoming like a super fan of yours. Like, don't text him too much. Don't freak him out. But I'm just going to tell you as the audience, as a guy a person who reads a lot and reads a lot of quality, I think very quality books and Pulitzer Prize winning books and etc. National Book Award books
and wrote a New York bestseller himself.
I like to write, and this is a book that I highly recommend to everyone, whether you're just a good regular reader. It should probably be in poli-sci in colleges. It should. It's just a good roadmap for being fucking good. And all told in this amazing tale.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I think that's it. You got when you started texting me, that was really incredible, because that's the kind of reaction you want. You're an author, and whether it's your writing or your music, you want it to touch people in some way.
Yeah.
There's something you're trying to convey. And when you texted me and told me that that this book was having an effect on you, it was good, because you were one of the early readers. Had one of the very early copies of the book, and I appreciate you taking the time and reading it.
And
I'm
to
glad you had
whoever,
this effect.
your book company, for believing in this, and your editor, and whatever you have here. I don't know who you have behind you here, but you got.
It's me.
It's you.
But I had some good editors. I did have some great editors that I worked with, some people that were fantastic that I thanked in the book.
Yeah. But congratulations.
Yeah.
Guys, if you're watching this, you're already aware of Kenny Downs' writing, and spread the word. That's the important thing about this book. And go out and get this book, read it on your Kindle, go buy a copy, go to your local independent bookstore. Always do that.
There you go.
But order it on Amazon. Any way you can get this book, get it, because you're going to treasure it and you're going to pass along the story. And it will do nothing but good for you.
A really nice conversation between the two of you guys.
Yeah, that was fun, and it was that was a really, really great time to just sit down and talk to people about the book. I mean, it's what I'm loving doing, what I'm loving about life right now, is to be able to talk with folks, talk with people like this about the book.
Yes. Well, speaking of, we've got some questions. We have chosen our first question.
Right.
It comes in from William Cross, and you talked a little bit about this in your conversation with Duff there, but I want you to be, because William's question is, what was the inspiration for the Darko book? So you did talk about it with Duff, but be a little more specific to like the first week that you started cooking on this, and take us through that process.
Yeah, well, Mark, I was really inspired by the Joan of Arc story, which is the story of this woman. I talked about it in the interview with Duff that we just heard. I was really inspired by her story because, I just have this belief that young people of today are capable of some very remarkable things. And sometimes, as older guys or older women, we don't give young people enough credit. There's not, like there was back, she was a 15th century person. So, she did all that stuff that I talked about, with the battles and winning the 100-Year War and finding freedom for France. But she did all that and was in battles and injured and walked with a limp and built her own armor. I mean, she did all these amazing things. And she, when she died, she had just turned 19, so I thought about the problems we have today, and I thought about all of these social issues, social justice issues, and the environmental issues that we have, environmental justice, the way that we're treating our planet. And I just said, we need a Joan of Arc for today. And the book really started, I wanted to write an op-ed for the Seattle Times. And so I sat down, I was going to write this little story called Where Are You, Joan of Arc? And that was going to be the name of it.
Right.
And I was going to write down, hey, where is this young, dynamic voice that's going to lead people, spiritually lead people? And that started in that. I never sent that op-ed in, but I started, and the story just started coming.
Well, it's good because you may not have written the book. You may have just been able to say what you had to say, and
that's right.
And we wouldn't have this book, would we?
Yeah, that's right.
That's terribly remarkable. Because we are in a time of division. We're in a time of fear where fear is being played on by different people, and we are the pawns of that, I think, in a lot of ways. So that's why it speaks to me. Our second question comes from Greg L. Hughes. And you and I talked about this afternoon, so I'm anxious to hear you talk about this. How did you come to choose New Orleans as your primary location?
Well, the honest answer is that New Orleans chose me, and Johanny chose me, and I really feel that way. I mean, I really felt inspired when I was writing this. I would sit down in my little meditation room downstairs, and I would just close my eyes and just envision these things, and it would come to me that way. And so I thought, if we did have a Joan of Arc, if there was a person that was coming along, where would that person come from? And it just came to me, New Orleans, because Joan of Arc was illiterate. She was poverty stricken. She wasn't from Paris, France. She was from this little town where uneducated farmers and people that have just been, they've been beaten up in this war for 100 years. So, I've been to Louisiana. I've got some great friends and stuff down there. And so it came to me, Johannie Darko would be from Louisiana, and she would probably be from, a neighborhood like Desire.
Well, I was really struck by it because that's what brought me into this book in the first 50 or 60 pages was that imagery of, and I think I told you, I made my first visit to New Orleans a couple of years ago, and I can feel it in that book. And to me, the spiritual message comes through really clear when I'm locked into that.
Yeah.
You've taken me, I'm an escapist. When I read, I want to escape, and I escape, but I got a message at the same time. So that's pretty remarkable.
Great.
So let's not wait any
Thanks
longer.
for those questions.
Yes.
Bill and
Greg.
Great. Thank you.
Greg.
And we're going to send you out some stuff, and so we'll get your address and get you some stuff out. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Let's not wait any longer. I'm gonna step off camera here for a few minutes, and I'm gonna let Kenny do what he does best, is read a little bit of his work for you. So, Kenny, take it away.
Very good. So we're going to do 2 of these book readings. Each one's about 10 minutes. So settle in and hang out. And so the first piece I'm going to read, Johannie Darko is a child in this piece, just to set this up. She's 7 years old. She began to having these spiritual experiences, and it's really a lot like our own spiritual experience. If you think about for those of us that have been living a spiritual way of life, when you're kind of the spiritual infant, everything is new, and that's kind of where Johannie Darko is. She's a seeker. So it starts out, the chapter is the chapter called Mama, and it starts out, I'm going to just start midway through that chapter. And it says, only 2 blocks from the dilapidated 1-bedroom tenement apartment we all shared, she went through the front door of the nearest church and directly into the empty and deserted chapel. Being a child of 7, she had experiences of most 50-year-olds and the soul of 1,000 years. Her tiny, thin arms and legs were bruised and scarred. Choke marks were on her neck from the full-size hands of a human being turned monstrous demon. Johannie Darko said her first prayer of relief. Help me, God. I am lost and want to be found. Amen. And then she waited for an answer. Johannie Darko may well have been the most faith-filled human being to ever walk into that church. I tear up even today when I think of how her soul never wavered. She trusted even then that God was with her, and that when she asked, God would answer. Looking up at the altar and seeing the likeness of Christ on the cross looming so large and powerful, she noticed his gaze looking to his right towards another, smaller statue of Christ's mother, Mary. Johannie thought to herself, I must learn who this woman is. Maybe she is my real mother. She stared at the beauty radiating from the woman. Strangely, she felt safety and love pour from the statue and into her soul. Feeling this immense love like she had never felt before, Johannie Darko said her second prayer for relief. Mother, you must be God, I feel you. Help me, Mother God. Help me to show others what I know. Feed me when I am hungry. Bring me to a family that will love me by bringing love to the family I have. Amen. The statue of Mother Mary was life-size. The mother's gaze upturned towards heaven, her arms outstretched, the palms of her hands upturned just above hip level. Mother Mary was reaching. She was in the receiving mode. Under Mother Mary's left leg, underfoot, was a serpent in the form of a large snake, fangs extended. Even at 7 years old, Johannie instinctively knew the symbolism, and she saw herself as Mother Mary. She knew what takes most of us a lifetime to learn. that if she kept her gaze and attention toward God, she would be in receiving mode, in the place where prayers are answered. This was where her real mother would come to her, she thought. This is where she would find her heavenly Father. She was drawn to the serpent under Mother Mary's left foot. Knowing this represented all her troubles, those who violated her innocence as in childhood, those who beat, yelled, and belittled her, those who knew but didn't say, those whose silence was deafening, those who knew but those who not only perpetuated the abuse, but also those who, seeing what was happening to their own neighbor, found it somehow palatable to stay silent. Johanni Darko saw what most missed, that the serpent was underfoot. Johanni realized in that moment that if she became like this mother, with her gaze toward God, her problems would be underfoot. She prayed the prayer of too many 7-year-old children, a prayer Mother Mary had heard too many times. Johanni Darko said her third prayer for relief. Mama, help me, amen. And she waited. Her prayer was answered and she heard the voice for the first time. Mother Mary, Mother of God, spoke to her as clearly as if she were being talked to by her own mother in the small apartment in Desire. Johanni, you are so loved. You have not been forsaken. I am with you. I need you to be strong. You are our chosen one. Keep your love and your kindness as your strength. Johanni was not startled, not surprised. This was why she had come. She looked again at the statue of Christ on the cross and saw sadness on his face. She knew he was sad for her, but also sad for her mother, for her brothers, Jack and Bobby, for visitors to her mother and Alberta, like Simon the White, who continued coming through the years. She understood why Christ was saddened and shared in thinking about each one's sad lives and what she may be able to do to bring happiness and harmony to them, like the statue of Christ was doing to her in that moment. Simon was not like some of the other men. He was kind and sometimes brought candy to give young Johanni. Johanni always thanked him kindly and recalled in that moment how she would ask him, Simon, have you found God yet? He would reply, not yet, kid, but maybe one day soon. He would scramble back to the room with her mother and close the door. Even at 7 years old, Johanni knew her mother was selling herself and compromising her soul in the process. Sitting alone, hearing the sounds and waiting for her mother to finish up was a part of life for her. Johanni recalled how those were the loneliest times. Staring at the statue of Christ, Johanni knew, like herself, he was saddened for what Anna Maria had to do to feed the overwhelming compulsion for drugs and masculine attention. She saw that he was sad for the men and women who had abused her. Johanni, like Christ, had no capacity for hate. She, like him, was a savior, a 7-year-old savior. Johanni looked at the statue of Mary and rose from her seat as she noticed a lone tear form in the eye of Mary. The tear ran from the eye and down the face of the statue. As the young Savior stood facing Mother Mary toe to toe, she stretched her battered and bruised little arms towards the cheek. She stretched and stood up on her toes to wipe away the tear. In her small voice, she said simply, "Don't cry, Mama. I am here." Johanni Darko had heard the voice of God clearly for the first time. She had unmistakably heard not only in words, but in that language of the heart that is not audible, but vibrational. She had communicated with an angel. She had been chosen by Mary, the Mother of God, and Mary, the Mother of God, had been chosen by Johanni Darko.
Okay, that is absolutely remarkable. That moment where she seizes upon this,
Yeah.
what's happening to her and where this journey's taking
Yeah.
her. What is remarkable to me is the amount of humanity in those other characters, in her family and her mother. They're perfectly imperfect, you know, and she's able to take them on this journey.
Yeah.
That's truly remarkable.
At 7 years old.
At 7 years old.
That's right.
Well, the child, right?
Yeah.
As I don't know, as an adult, I don't think I'm open. I don't think I'm open to that kind of thing. I think I have all the answers, right? And she doesn't.
Yeah.
That's truly remarkable. We have a piece right now from another friend of Kenny's. You guys might know him. He plays guitar for Pearl Jam. His name is Mike McCready, and he's got a message for you about this wonderful book.
Hey, this is Mike McCready. I just finished this book called Darko by Kenny Down. It's a really great book. It's about a kind of a Joan of Arc character who's come to basically call out the evils in the world and unite humanity for the purposes of love and helping one another. It's just a cool story, and I hope you'd read it. Okay, I really loved it. Thanks. All right.
He can't end anything without having a guitar. I love that.
Yeah, he's the what I call him the guitar major for peace. And you know, that guy brings a lot of peace to life, does a lot of good work in the community. And so it's just, you know, so humbling to have him
Yes.
do a little pitch for the book like that.
And a voice, a really strong voice for this. That's
Yes.
amazing. We have some more questions. We have some more hats. We have some more books, right?
We
So we're
sure
gonna make
do.
that happen.
Plenty of hats and books to give away.
This question comes from Jenny Cornell here in Seattle.
Yeah.
And she asks, how long did it take to write Darko?
To write Darko took about a year and a half, I would say, to write it. And that's including, it took about a year to write it, and then another 6 months through the edits and the various things. And so I was, you know, it would have took a lot longer if it wasn't for the coronavirus. I'll tell you that. You know, I gave me a chance to do this, and I had a situation in business where I had a business relationship that ended pretty poorly. And just, you know, what these blessings are, because, you know, I was working so much, and I finally got to just kick back and think, okay, I'm not partnered up with these guys. What am I going to do right now? And I decided to finish this book.
I think that was a good choice at your time.
Yeah, beautiful.
Now, evidently, Mike McCready's online and watching this evening because he has
Very
a question.
good. Hi, Mike. Thanks.
Hi, Mike.
He is the guitar major for peace.
For
I just want to
peace.
say something about that real quick. That's a you know, to put ourselves out front like this, and like Mike just did in the piece, and like we're doing here. You know, Martin Luther King has a piece, and go read it sometime. It's amazing, called "The Drum Major for Peace." He said it's okay to be out front, you know, to be the guy with the big hat, the drum major in the parade, boom, boom, boom. Here he comes, he's kicking his feet up, and
Right.
everybody's looking, he blows the whistle, and
Right.
you know. But he says just be a drum major for peace, and Mike's
Become the guitar major.
He is the guitar major for peace in my mind.
That, and his question, I think, flows right out of what we were talking about before. It says, Kenny, your quote about you can change the king, but it doesn't matter unless you change the kingdom.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on where we can start changing the kingdom?
Well, it's a bit of a deep question, but the answer is pretty simple. You know, that clearly, I think in our society and with the planet and the environment, you know, we've hit bottom in a way. You know, and you know, I'm a clean and sober guy, and so I know all about what it's like to hit bottom. And I think, you know, as a collective whole, you know, if we could agree that, okay, we don't want to continue down this path, you know, we need, and so what's the answer? You know, the answer is this changing the, you know, we want to change the king, and the king's going to change everything, but it doesn't work that way. You know, if the kingdom, the consciousness level has to rise in the kingdom. And what that means to me is that, you know, a power greater than ourselves can restore us to sanity, you know, that we need some sanity in this world. And it's us, you know, the people that are like you, Mark, I know you well, and you know, we're spiritually minded people. It's up to us, you know.
Yes.
We are the only ones that can bring about this change and can bridge this gap between, you know, conservative and liberals and people of different races and different nationalities and people that just can totally conceive things in a different way. There's only one answer, and that's the spiritual awakening at an individual level. That's what you can do,
Right.
Find your spiritual center and start practicing.
There you go, Mike, so get to work.
Yeah.
So, and I want to mention this because it just occurred to me when you're describing Joan of Arc
Yeah.
and also Jahani, both those female characters sound to me like deplorables that Hillary Clinton called out
Yeah.
during the campaign. They don't come from education, they don't come from money, but there's a voice there. And it's saying, to me, it's saying that voice can come from anywhere, and we have to listen to everyone.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that the voice can come from anywhere. We got to be looking for it,
Right.
and it's going to perhaps come from an unlikely source. That in the interview with Duff, the point that I made there was that just like the Johanny Darko in this book is bringing some good news to a lot of people, to people who are poor or who are suffering, people who are having a hard time in this life, or people who are addicted or imprisoned or infirmed or hospitalized. This is good news, and that's we've had a lot of ascended masters that have brought the good news, but it generally wasn't the good news for everybody.
Right.
If you're sitting at the top of the
Wasn't
heap in
for
the
the king.
political world, this might not be the good news.
Right.
And so yeah.
Outstanding. Well, we have another fan that would like to weigh in. His name is Don Coyas.
Yeah, one of my very favorites.
Yes, a Native American leader. And let's go ahead and listen to what he has to say right now.
Hey, Kenny, congratulations on your book. I read it. I know it's going to sell, and I'm just really happy and proud of you. Thanks.
Very, very nice.
Yeah, so that I just want to say that meant a lot to me. For a guy like Coyas, this is a guy that he walked from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C. to deliver a message to D.C.
Really?
Walked on foot. And, I go into a lot more, but read his books. I mean, the guy's an amazing, amazing guy. He's helped many, many, many thousands of people find what he calls recovery from abuse, child abuse, and neglect. And
well, in being in recovery like yourself, I've read that work.
Yeah.
And it is remarkable. It's moving.
Remarkable stuff.
Truly moving.
Yeah.
We want to give Kenny a chance to read again from Darko. Are you ready? He's got his book marked out. And again, I'm going to step away and let the master go to work. Do you find your glasses?
I gotta find my glasses. Which usually I have my wife to find my glasses for me, but she's downstairs right now. So
Downstairs, busy taking
all on my
questions.
phone.
All right,
Yeah.
take it away, Kenny.
Okay, so this is from towards the end of the book. Johanny now is 19 years old. She's getting ready to give a big talk at the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and she's got a huge worldwide following at this point. So that's a part of the story to kind of put this in context. She's got a lot of detractors. There's a lot of people that are against her that don't, there's a person in the book, the Bastard of Orleans and the Ghost and these people that are just dead set on stopping her because she is gaining way too much power for their liking, and they feel their power starting to slip away. And as we know, nobody gives up power willingly, very rarely. So it says, now less than 24 hours to go, we completed our travel from New Orleans to Washington, D.C. A safe house was set up for us in the Washington Highlands neighborhood off Atlantic Street. Magdalene and I were relieved and ecstatic to be reunited with Johanny. We looked forward to one day with Johanny in private, but we were to be disappointed. Tired and with one of the biggest days in her life ahead, Johanny demanded to be taken to the Shiloh Baptist Church for renewal in a house of worship. We arrived late afternoon, traveling in deep secrecy. Johanny was taken in for a meal with the Reverend Dr. George Charles Jones, who had kept our confidence even from his own congregation. No one save a few knew we were in D.C., despite the fact that this was a church only miles from the National Mall. Johanny ate a few bites blessed us all with a prayer, and then was left alone in the chapel there for 2 hours at her request. Local gang members who had been rivals for many years came together to walk the blocks and alert Dr. Jones and our security of any disturbance or any sightings of trouble. The Reverend knew these troubled young people in his neighborhood, knew one thing about them for sure. They knew how to keep a secret. They could guard the Princess of Peace without word getting out that anything unusual was going on. They would come and bring their brothers and sisters together for the joining of the Sacred Hearted at the National Mall the following day. Johanny was alone in the front row of the sanctuary. I alone was allowed to take a seat in the last row of pews to secure her protection. I watched as she lay down on one of the front pews and fell into another realm. I felt certain she had fallen victim to a lack of sleep. We all saw the tremendous stress that had been on her during our 5-day journey. Furthermore, she was weakened because she had refused to eat more than 1 meal per day as a show of unity to her millions of followers that went hungry each night. She had lost weight she could little afford to shed. She had teased me that I was eating enough for us both. As she sat in prayer, she uttered a simple prayer of petition. God, Lord of the happy, joyous, and free, I am tired and weak, but I cannot show tiredness. Your followers have given me attributes I do not deserve. I am simply your daughter from New Orleans. Why am I doing this? Give me strength. I have given all I have. I have come this far, but now you must carry me. I am too weak to continue. I am at last all yours. There is none of me left. Amen. Johanny opened her eyes and at once read the words inscribed on the front of the lectern in the church. This do in remembrance of me. She thought of another who had given all they had to save the world, and then another and another and another. She wailed out loud with a shout that was the final letting go, a primordial scream of one who has finally given themselves over completely to the spiritual life. I arose when I heard the scream. Surprisingly, I was not concerned, but I knew I should check. I had seen many times Johanny drop out and seize when going to the voices. I had never heard the scream before or since. Whatever small hatred, anger, judgment, or connection to the non-spiritual life that Johanny still held onto was now gone. Her face contorted and she began shaking as her head dropped into a deep slumber and she slid into a laid-out position with her back upon the bench. Her face twisted, her legs jumped and jittered. She pulled her arms up tight to her sides and her hands went into clenched fists as her elbows bent and her fist pulled in tight just below her chin. Then as quickly as it had come, within a few seconds, all went still. I knew she was with the voices and she was being given the strength she needed for tomorrow and beyond. I retreated to my station in the last row and kept eyes on all entrances to the holy place we were in. Johanny was with all the masters, all of those who had come to her and led her to God. They were all there, but no one spoke. She could not see them, but felt their presence. She was out the mountaintop, and the clouds let go with rain in the form of tears. The world was crying, and she was willingly receiving the pain of the world. There were all around her the sounds of sadness, animals sounding off, wailing and crying in their own language. She understood each word from every creature and all at the same time. Flashes of color moved from the animals and the sky. The birds, fish of the sea, elk, the great apes, lions, bears, dogs, and cats, wolves, coyotes, and eagles were one color. She was standing now on the mountaintop. She was lifted off her feet, tilted backward slightly so she was facing the sky, the horizon in full view, and was quickly spun facing west as the sun was coming up. In this direction, she saw and heard them all in red, and saw all of creation in the animals and all as small children. Next, she was floated and slowly turned to her left to the north, and all of creation turned yellow. And she saw the animals, birds, and clouds all as adolescents, full of play and not yet grown up. She smiled as she looked at herself, and she was yellow. Turned again by the winds of God, now facing east, she saw all of this as black, and all as adults, growing up, beautiful, shining, glowing ebony. It was the black of smooth, luxurious silk, the black of a warm charcoal ember, the black of that wonderful night sky, acting as the backdrop that makes all colors vibrant and allows us to see the stars, the moon, and the planets. She looked and saw that she was black and knew she had taken the role of the adult. The sky was darkened but starlit and beautiful. The star and planets were all around as they should be and were radiating energy to the earth where she stood. She could hear the planets and stars praying for her, singing her song. She did not understand the language but felt the emotions and understood the meaning of every word. She was turned one last time and now faced the south. The animals and all sentient beings were now white, near blinding white, but she could make them all out. Present was the white buffalo, the white eagle, the white coyote, and the white clouds, planets, and stars. All were elderly now. Waves of wisdom hit her like a lightning bolt and sent shock waves through her body. She felt the weightlessness and knew this symbolized the powerlessness she had without God. The wind was blowing, but it was not the wind of a weather system, it was the wind of spirit. This wind of spirit blew through her and filled her rather than hitting her and going around her. Her hair floated in weightlessness as she was again set on her feet, and all the natural colors returned. Johanni lost all sense of time. All time was in this one moment and no time passed. She had changed, but new time was standing still until all had changed. This represented to Johanni that we are stuck in space and time by our own fixed ideas, that we must become open-minded for time to genuinely move on. Johanni Darko knew she would have to start the spiritual clock again. No one had wound them in some time, and they had ceased to move. The clock of physical evolution had continued to move, and now it was time for the spiritual clock to catch up. She could see at once all of humanity, all as represented by the four colors coming from each of the four directions and gathering in one circle all of the billions of human beings in one circle with space for future children and with one golden thread penetrating each one at the heart level, passing through them and on to the next person. Johanni could converse with all and each one separately and at the same time. She was able to convey the love she had for them and feel the love they had for her. They were with her. Different dress, religions, races, sexes, rich and poor, different beliefs and ideas, nationalities, PhDs and illiterate alike, gang members, motorcycle riders, and poverty-stricken addicts, babies just born and elders in their final days, but all joined by one golden cord. Mentally stable and mentally tortured, warriors, fighters, peace activists, and those riddled with fear. Conservatives and liberals, men who love men and women who love women, and all sexual orientations and identities held together with one common golden thread. Johanny Darko looked down to see a golden thread entering her heart and extending back out and onto another, but noticed in her right hand a knife and understood that she alone could cut the cord, or she could drop the knife. She had been chosen to remind us that we are all one, connected by one spirit. She dropped the knife, and in doing so knew that she had accepted fully who she was and never asked again why she was chosen. 2 hours to the minute after Johanny had gone into the sanctuary, she rose. Gone were the dark circles and sagging skin under her eyes. Her hair was even lighter and softer. The inner light was again burning bright. She was renewed. Returning to the safe house, she was left alone with Magdalene, and they slept until 6 a.m. It was Earth Day, April 22nd. It was also Johanny's 19th birthday. Cake was served with breakfast. We all sang the happy birthday song and rejoiced in a Johanny that only the night before had looked worn and fatigued. She was once again a smiling, laughing, and vibrant young woman. Tuning into the news as it was being reported that the crowds were in the hundreds of thousands and that all access to the mall by car for miles had been blocked off. Thousands came by the metro rail and buses dropped groups as close as they could. The streets were filled with walkers walking and pushing those who could not walk. There was no stopping or limiting this massive migration. With the help of sympathetic government agents who risked everything they had, their livelihood, their careers, their freedom, their families, and their own safety, we had our plan and a way in. Many hundreds had jeopardized all they had to see Johanny Darko take to the steps of the Lincoln Memorial at 3 p.m.
I couldn't help but notice that you got a little choked up by that.
I did. I do when I read it. And I think, Mark, that the reason that is, I really feel like this is an inspired book, that I feel humbled that the story came to me that way, that it, I would go to my room downstairs, my, what I call my spiritual room, and sit in my chair and just close my eyes and these scenes would play out. I had a chance to go to Washington, D.C. and, stand on this. I actually sat on the spot where Martin Luther King had given his big talk and wrote a big chunk of that part. And so, and the couple chapters that follow, I sat there and for several hours and wrote those few chapters out, trying to envision Johanny just standing there and all that she would have to go through in her life to get to that place, to get to be able to kind of deliver this, this vision of what we could be at our best to so many people.
Well, it comes down to she has this experience of spiritual transformation and awareness, and that is inclusive.
Yeah.
I love that part. But then to leave her with just her 2 feet on the ground.
Yeah.
This remarkable place. It's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I urge you, please go to Amazon.com and to BarnesandNoble.com, and please download this book, buy the paperback, write a review, but read this, please. I think it is truly remarkable. There are going to be some more of these events right now. We want to go over to the unofficial Darko fan club, book club, fan club, book club. Yvonne McPherson is standing by to give us a little bit more information about that.
Oh, wow. Gosh, I am so honored to be here today. I don't know about you guys, but still trying to catch my breath after that last reading, Kenny. I was thinking when Mark, mentioned that you got a little teary. I literally am. Don't have any Kleenex with me, but I really want to thank you, Kenny, for allowing me to be a part of and inviting me. And Darko has genuinely, again, touched me in a way that that your first book, Awaken Giant Sleeping Spirit, generously did. And my hope is that, you know, I started this book club because I wanted people to have a place to be able to go and share their experience and talk about it. And if you're not a part of the book club, you're welcome. We would love for you to join. It's on Facebook. It's Darko Book Club. It is private and a safe place for us to communicate. I think we have a little over 500 members as of today. But we're going to be starting some really fun rooms and topics and things that we can discuss around Darko. I think it's a really important book, and I like to share with people. And when we all have a story. When I have a handful of them, and two of them have been Kenny's book that have been profound in my life. And when something like that happens, I tend to want to share and hope that you can have an experience around it and then share together. So we're having another event in 2 weeks. That's November 7th on Saturday. It's going to be live for the pandemic. It's kind of nice to be able to just hop online and talk to one another this way. But Kenny will do another reading out of Darko, and we will be able to answer questions. We're going to be giving away more prizes. I don't know if you got to see those super cute hats, but we have hats, and we have Kenny's first book, Awaken Giant Sleeping Spirit. And if you haven't gotten Darko, please do. And like I said, we're going to be discussing, no spoilers, but we'll have rooms to. I am in the house. They're cute, huh? What? So anyways, go get your book and join the Darko Book Club. And thank you for submitting your questions today. We got them, and they all will be answered at some point. Kenny allowed to do that today. So those ones that we didn't get to, we will definitely get them. He will get them, and we'll be able to answer those for you. So thanks again, Kenny, and go get your Darko book. Blessing.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. I had to take her the hat. I couldn't help myself. Okay, let's make sure we're dialed in. Are we there? Okay, good.
Yeah, man.
Kenny, first I want to thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
Thank you very much for
we both
doing
sanitized our hands, so
We did.
we're
Got
going
hand sanitizer everywhere. Masks when we're not on the camera.
camera. So thank you so much, everyone who joined us tonight. Kenny, thank you for those incredible readings and for sharing this book. Again, we want you to go out and have this book. You can go to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com and just put Kenny down in the search engine. The book will come up and you will be on your way.
Yeah, and go vote, everybody. I know I said that it doesn't make a difference if we change the king or not, but
It's a good
I
first
think
step.
that's true. But go vote, and we'll be back. We're going to answer questions. I'll be making more of these videos and answering questions and posting them on the Darko Book Club. And thank you to everybody that participated in making this such a wonderful event, touching my heart as deeply as you have tonight.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Good night.